Hello, everyone, and welcome to the debut webinar in the Engineering Career Series. This is a brand new series aimed to showcase the broad spectrum of engineers working in industry. Today, we will hear from Rory W. Ryan, MSc MEng. He has worked with publicly listed corporations around the world. Rory is passionate about problem solving and improving society through technology and innovation. As the webinar is going on, we'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to send them in via the comments box. We will then pick from these and include them in the Q&A session directly after the presentation. Of course, if you have questions after this event, you feel free to contact us via email and we'll do our best to assist you. For those of you just joining us, welcome. This is the first webinar in the Engineering Career Series. I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Rory W. Ryan, MSc MEng. He is an entrepreneurial engineer who specializes in health technology, life sciences, data science, and engineering industries.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rory, and thank you very much for inviting me to discuss with you today my entrepreneurial journey and how it might be interesting or even kind of useful to anyone who is interested in coming away from the slightly traditional engineering career path and looking at starting a company. Covering some lessons and problems I face that might be interesting and useful, as I said, and it's particularly suited to people who are looking to build a startup for the first time. And what by startup I mean some kind of technology-based business rather than a traditional company. So my background: I'm currently the Chief Product Officer of a company called Zio Health, and I founded it as well. And much of this presentation is talking about how I went about doing that. Zio Health, it's a biotechnology company that has developed quite a pioneering new diagnostic technology that allows us to develop portable diagnostic devices to test blood, saliva, urine, and other molecules in those liquids and other fluids as well. And we can typically test things in under 2 minutes in the various different applications that we serve, both in healthcare and non-healthcare applications. And I also am a business advisor. I specialize in supporting companies, engineering companies, science, life sciences, health tech, supporting companies to grow. So, to get started, I was from a family of artists and accountants, no engineers at all. Really, my dream was to be an inventor. Here's a picture with one of my favorite inventions, which was a Conco retriever. This was kind of a nifty little gadget I made, so I could collect horse chestnuts and sell them on the school playground, distribute them, and really I was very lucky to have a great childhood, full of creativity. And one of my mum's favorite, I guess, kind of mantras was really, create a void in your time, and we would kind of fill it with creative things, drawing, painting, making things, climbing trees, building tree houses. We didn't have a games console, and effectively it's almost in the period of time when you're most bored, if you have equipment for drawing and pens and pencils ready and bits of metal to make things just happen lying around the house, because it was kind of an artist's house, bits of wood, string. If you've got this all this stuff lying around, when you get bored, your mind starts look at these things, how you can build something, and that was really fueled, that kind of environment really fueled my creativity. And yeah, just spent a lot of my time, as a child and teenager in the garden shed building things. And I was just going to share some of the more hilarious inventions that I had as a child. On the right is a drawing of the Conquer Retriever from the photo, and on the left is a wingsuit. So I spent huge amounts of time fascinated about flying and trying to build flying machines. And I did a terrible job of building them. I pulled together and sewed old umbrellas, strapped them to my back, rode the bicycle down the park next door to my house, down the hill, trying to take off as fast as I could. Obviously, that didn't work out too well, but I've many funny stories and fond memories of trying to hustle and trying to build gadgets and all kinds of things. I was especially interested in gadgets that could kind of advance, the human ability, superhero powers, and all that kind of thing as well. Also, another funny picture I thought I'd find. I saw this the other day. So, building a rocket. So, this is a picture of how to build a rocket, and on the right hand side are my instructions for building it. This is my first SOP, age 7. I was quite proud of this looking back now. But what's kind of interesting is I had absolutely no concept of engineering at this point. Like I said, it wasn't really an engineering household, no engineers in the family or anything. For me, this was art. It was about creativity, about making things, bringing ideas and vision into reality. And so this was an expression of art. And in later years, when I discovered there was a whole industry of making things, I was like, wow, that's fantastic. So fast forward quite a few years, and I went to the University of Leeds, studied mechanical engineering, mainly because it was the most general type of engineering, according to the person I spoke to on the university open day. And I wasn't really sure about any kind of specialisms, but I was really fascinated in how to commercialize technology, and had a real interest in medical devices. Effectively, in this picture, you can see a engineering society photo. So I was president of a relatively new engineering society, and effectively we grew the society while I was there, while I was president, from probably probably under 10 or 20 people to in the hundreds. And it was a thrilling experience. Absolutely loved it. Really hard work. But I really discovered this passion for bringing people together and following a vision goal. And I love that sense of camaraderie. And actually, this picture here was a football competition. Nothing like it had been done before. We had about just under 150 football players, I think it was, and 20 volunteers. And I mean, the reason why I put this in is because actually the chairman of the London IMechE Young Members, Alex, should be in there somewhere, because he was supporting the charity we did it with, and he was at Leeds with me at this time. Yeah, it was just a really enjoyable time, and in some ways is kind of similar to starting up a company. It's creating a new not-for-profit venture. I worked as an engineer at Cameron, based in Leeds, UK, Houston, Texas, and Celle, Germany. Fantastic experience working for a large corporation. Fascinating to see how a corporation organizes themselves, have very efficient processes in place to produce highly complex pieces of engineering machinery, and how people in the organization runs and manages itself. So I really found that quite interesting, and I think I've kind of written at the bottom here: align your engineering career to support your entrepreneurial goals. I imagine most people here who are thinking about starting up a company or have any ideas probably are already employed as an engineer, I imagine, or maybe you're a student. But some of the things I did. So while I was working, I was saving 20% of my salary towards that was the goal anyway, as much as I could, towards 20% of my salary towards a future business. So I was, effectively still living quite cheaply, as much as I could, just to save and scrape. I think the thing is as well is, what you're focused on in your job, ideally could be kind of, start to align towards some entrepreneurial goal. Maybe it's that you're, expanding your technical knowledge in an area that you think you could potentially at a later date develop a new innovation and business around, some kind of spin out. I've even seen a lot of, some of my friends now have negotiated 30-hour weeks or not kind of full-time weeks. So maybe they work 4 days a week and have one day where they're effectively not working. They're at home working on some other enterprise. So effectively, you're benefiting from a stable salary and a stable environment. You can pay your bills, but then you also get the free time to work in your business. I mean, that's fantastic, an ideal situation. And it's sometimes it's very hard to find that, to be honest with you. So if you don't have that, one of the things I was doing was just slogging it in the evening. So I'd get back as soon as I can. I'd be working away in the evenings on different business ventures at the weekends. And it's really hard. It's really hard because you kind of you gotta hustle. You need to kind of put in the hours. I've also worked as a contracting engineer. I really enjoyed looking at the kind of the whole project oversight as well as the attention to detail. I love the engineering side. These are some drawings for some product, a consumer product. But anyway, this is kind of all about starting to develop your skill sets wider outside of pure kind of engineering design, which is kind of what I was specialized in. I was actually finding a lot of my work from websites like Upwork.com or Freelancer, where people kind of can bid for different engineering jobs, also through my network. So actually a lot of the time you're kind of trying to find the work, not getting paid, and then half the time you're actually doing the work and getting paid. So it's still quite difficult to do. It's almost easier to start a business from an employed position where you have that kind of regular salary coming in, and it's less full on. I'd almost look for a very stable and easy job in some senses, that's not too demanding, so that you can kind of do that job well, perform well in that, but then also have headspace and the time to work on other side ventures. Taking the leap. So I've just listed a few different ideas that I was working on at that time. These are all side hustles that so there's productivity bands. So this was a wearable that could monitor your focus and productivity while you're working. That was a hardware device, and then there was ebook publishing. This is quite more of a creative venture. The idea was to write a number of sci-fi books and then set up my own kind of publishing, self-publish via Amazon, I think it was, and then then kind of build a brand from there. I spent 6 months writing an awful book, so I really don't recommend doing that. I mean, it just took so much time, and I did finish the book. The book you can see in the bottom right hand corner is called it's Dream Number 2, The Spoon. It took me 6 months, and it got progressively worse towards the end of the book. And it was because it was fun for the first 3 months, and then when I realized I wasn't getting anywhere, well, I was getting very slowly closer to actually setting up the company around. And if I wanted to do a whole range of books, I'd be there for years. The final 3 months of the 6 months took me to write that kind of short novel. I just really rushed through. So it was already a bad book and got even worse towards the end. I think also take into account your strategy, and you don't want to be taking so long to before you're actually able to test the market with any of your concepts. Pregnancy monitoring devices is quite an interesting one. So working with a few friends, a wearable device to fit on a mother's tummy, and it could measure the muscle contractions with EMG sensors, and connected via Bluetooth to a phone. One of the things from all of this was a key takeaway was to believe in your ability and just try it. So I think engineers are often trained, you first gather all the information, then you make an informed decision. But when starting a business venture, you don't always have this luxury. In fact, you never really have this luxury. And so you've got very, very, very limited information. A lot of it is really about listening to your gut, working with the very limited information that you have available, and to help you to make that mental leap from engineering training. It was really about trying to believe in my ability, that I could do it, that I was, smart enough to figure out whatever problem I would experience, or at least good enough to kind of, learn it or solve it, or ask someone in my network who did know how to do it. So that's kind of a really key thing is, with all of these things, there's a lot of anxiety. I'm not going to lie with you. When you're first starting out, it's like, bloody hell, where do I start? And you just got to believe in yourself that you're going to do it, and persist. So I was just going to highlight some of the problems with some of these ideas. So so to be honest with you, a lot of them was that I hadn't really identified a strong market need. So the website development, that was actually for a niche application. Ignore the lack of capital, that's a typo there. And the haircut appointment app, I mean, that was not a great idea. The idea with the haircut appointment app was facilitating free haircuts, a platform for free haircuts. It was an app, so effectively bringing together haircutting academies where they teach and train new hairdressers and barbers, connecting them with students and people who want a free haircut effectively. And the idea was that I could then use that and generate revenue via kind of advertising to those to kind of some of the networking there. But I mean, it was just such a small market. I think the other thing as well, lack of skills. So with the pregnancy monitoring device, we were kind of a team of friends. We didn't really have skills that kind of worked particularly well together, and it was we kind of were lacking some core skills. And in that case, the team weren't too serious about commercializing it. Had other kind of priorities. So solutions. So after kind of working for quite a long period, just to work on a number of different ideas, and actually I might just put in here, I worked on many different varieties as well to come up with ideas, including coming up with ideas, one idea a day for however many months. I think I did it for 6 months, and a lot of them were really awful ideas. But it's worth trying. It's worth exposing yourself to many different methods, see what works for you. Those types of things can help to boost your creativity, I believe. So it's still worth trying things like come up with one idea a day for 6 months, or as many as you can. Facilitate your creativity, basically. Anyway, coming back to the slide. So solution kind of reflected, and I was thinking, well, I need skills that are complementary to mine. And also, I wanted to work on something that was really innovative. I mentioned this point before. Some of the ideas lacked innovation. And after coming up with ideas every day for 6 months, I kind of realized a lot of the ideas, they were either very kind of abstract or too basic. And what I thought to solve that was to find some innovative technology that's maybe in research and look to commercialize that. And the way to do that is potentially find a smart scientist somewhere or a smart engineer somewhere who is doing that in research, and I can work with them to commercialize it. Another aspect as well is find a domain expert. So I just mean someone who is, has a deep understanding of the market somewhere, whatever that market is. I was interested in health technology. And so, that might be a health professional. And then of course, find a team who's, serious about building a company, that it's not just a, fun CV building exercise. It's actually something you're going to, move forward with. So I set myself a new goal, and that new goal, as I've written here, was to build a high-tech company by growing my network, finding some co-founders with complementary skills. Now, The different methods to do that. I mean, there's obviously informal networking. Just go about to a variety of different events and meet people there. Hackathons, for those who don't know, are engineering competitions, often last a day or over a weekend. I think originally they've come out of the software engineering world, often based upon a theme. So the last few months, there have been many COVID-19 hackathons. And what they do is they encourage you basically turn up at this event, meet a load of strangers, build teams with these people, and work on a new engineering project, or in some case, business venture, to solve the problem related to that theme. And then there's a panel of judges who decide, and whichever team wins, maybe there's a prize. There's also meetups as well. So there's a website called meetup.com, I think it is. They host a number of different events for a variety of different things, but they also do engineering and entrepreneurship events. And that's a good way to meet people and expose yourself to other entrepreneurs and people in the space. There's also websites like Indie Hacker is a relatively new website, which it's kind of like a forum for different engineers, largely software engineers, but it's great if you're trying to find a software engineer to partner with. I just had a friend who's starting a new company now. He he went to a number of hackathons just online, and he was kind of networking on this Indie Hacker website, and he's now found a software engineer that he's building a new software company with. So that's informal. There's also formal networking. So these are networks that you effectively might need to pay to join, or effectively provide more. They kind of facilitate your networking. And the Center for Entrepreneurs have a program called the New Entrepreneurs Foundation. And they will help you to find a business partner and support you and your business partner's new venture, whatever that might be. I actually applied for that, but got rejected, unfortunately. So I can't tell you how well that went. But I have heard. So I do have a good friend who went through it, and he said it was a great network to be in. You immediately meet lots of people not from engineering backgrounds. Actually, I think they don't like engineers that much, to be honest with you. But they support. I think they actually support non-technical people. Come to think of it. But anyway, these types of networks are great. You kind of join them, quickly meet lots of people, entrepreneurs, people at similar stages to you, bounce ideas off them, and then the actual organization provides you support with your venture. Entrepreneur First is basically the same thing, but they actually can invest money into you as well, which is awesome. And they are more geared towards technical people. So they have a lot of engineers join that, mechanical, software, a lot of scientists as well. So I'd probably recommend Entrepreneur First for everyone to Google after this. You can look at both. Now, there's also other traditional education like business schools, and I ended up going to Imperial College Business School. So I applied, really wasn't sure about an academic environment, helping me on my journey, but it was just that Imperial College has just got an absolutely fantastic science community. Going back a few slides, remember I was saying I wanted to find some innovative technology, someone working in it, help them to commercialize it somehow. And that's why I went, for the large part. It wasn't necessarily about the degree, but I spent all of my time outside of the lectures taking PhDs, doctors, MBAs out for coffee. There was a lot of coffee. Don't even like coffee that much, but it was worth it. And then the degree I did was a business management degree focused on entrepreneurship and startups. So the degree was very good, but I think a huge value is that network. And Imperial College, it was fantastic. It's a great engineering university as well. So I'm very pleased to say that my strategy pulled off, and all that hustling and all that coffee was worth it, because actually just a few months after I started at Imperial, I met a doctor from Oxford University, and a scientist. Well, actually, I first met the doctor, and we were kind of discussing ideas in health tech, and then I found a scientist as part of the network I'd kind of grown at Imperial. So we suddenly found ourselves with quite a good team with complementary skills and different backgrounds. An engineer, who can kind of commercialize stuff, project manage stuff. A doctor who has that domain experience, domain knowledge of of a healthcare area, and then a scientist. Now, the scientist happened to be working in a very new area of biosensors, which was absolutely fantastic. So we were interested in commercializing his technology, and that's what we did with Zaya Health. And I could say we're kind of lucky to find him, but at the same time, it was, my specific goal was to find someone, and I also worked my ass off trying to find someone. So I kind of think I earned it actually in some ways. I found this person, found these people, and it was great. The three of us started the company with a vision to bring diagnostic testing and different laboratory testing to the home with our portable testing devices. So here's a picture of one of my business partners, the scientist, Shaolin. He is injecting some chemicals on the kitchen table in my apartment at the time in London. So we did that proper stereotypical startup thing people do in their, building prototypes in their apartments and stuff. And actually, I might just pop in here that really fantastic thing to do is to make the use of hack spaces and maker spaces in your local cities. They're really fantastic places. They work like a gym. You pay a monthly membership and get access to engineering equipment, not gym equipment, engineering equipment. So you get access to soldering irons, 3D printers. It depends what the local organization has in your city. Your city might not have one. You've got to Google it. But I know Leeds has at least one. London has, I think, 3 or something. When you're looking to launch a new product, the ideal situation is you can develop the product or the business and sell the business with no upfront costs whatsoever. But I mean, that's obviously impossible because, I mean, the cost of your time, the cost of the materials you need. And so the thing is, you end up having to spend money to then make money, obviously, to start up a company. So the valley is the capital you need to spend to effectively set up the business or develop the technology. So a traditional business might be restaurants or something like that, and require maybe relatively smaller amounts just to set up a new restaurant company. Startup innovation focused businesses, especially hardware, require a lot more money just to get going. Software might be a bit different. You might be able to make prototypes, start generating revenue much earlier than that. But specifically for hardware, this is the case. And for high tech and deep science businesses like Zaya Health, where we have very new science technology, we've got a whole because I didn't mention actually, we use DNA biosensors. So it's just a whole nother level of complexity. So as you can see with this yellow line, the time between when we start at 0 until when we're actually cash flow positive is much longer than all of the others. So how do you solve this problem? I mean, there's a if you can't if you can't if your product just or your business requires the money, it's difficult to avoid that. And actually, that's one reason why many large companies go bankrupt, is because of cash flow issues. They don't have the money to pay the bills at the time it's due. So the problem, so maybe the solution to the last problem, but it's a problem in itself as well, is raising investment. So how do you navigate that valley of death? You raise money, you borrow money, you find investors to get over that. But there's actually a number of different ways you can find investors. So there's startup competitions. Maybe there's a competition, compete against other startups, prize money you can take. Bank loans, they're a bit tricky to get for high risk, very early stage companies. More, might be able to get it for more traditional types of companies. Friends and family are a bit more of an easier one. It's kind of what everyone has to start with if you're able to. Crowdfunding is quite an interesting concept that's been around maybe the last 10 years or so, maybe 15 years. Crowdfunding is a type of business. So the crowdfunding websites are, you'll have an online platform where you can upload a project with a project video, describe your team, describe your project goals, describe your kind of vision, and state how much money you're looking to raise. And people can find your website, or you advertise your website, and then people can, maybe they love the concept and they want to help you and support you. They will pledge money towards you. And that's kind of one way you can raise capital. So Kickstarter is a popular website some people might have heard of. So that's kind of crowdfunding. You also have equity crowdfunding, which is slightly different. You've got to give away shares, but anyway, I won't really touch on that now. But if you are interested in that, you can ask me about that as well at the end. Private investors, so angels. So these are just high net worth individuals. They might be entrepreneurs who've sold previous companies. They might just be wealthy people who've inherited lots of money. Sometimes it's quite hard to find these people because sometimes they don't really want to be found. They want to, find you. But anyway, actually going to startup competitions and, advertising yourself is one way you might get on the radar of some of these people. But it's also speaking to other people who have started companies, other startups, and maybe they can recommend their investors to you. Venture capital firms, they are large companies who will have a fund that they have raised from other investors. They are managing a fund of money, a big pool of maybe, could be in the tens or hundreds of millions or even more of money. And they invest into high growth companies with the aim of kind of exiting the company in a few years. I mean, some of these terms maybe you're kind of not familiar with, but anyway, this is another form of capital raising, of venture capital, and it's more suited to companies with more traction. So it's probably not a starting point. So that's kind of why I won't go into too much detail. Something to be aware of. And then finally, there's accelerators. So an accelerator is like a business incubator that provides sometimes investment, but often business advice, and even support, and sometimes even engineering support. So this is what we went with. We applied to a number of different accelerators. A very famous one is called Y Combinator. There's also Techstars, but there's also another famous one. The most active accelerator, I believe, in the world at the moment is run by SWSV, who are a company that own this accelerator, HAX. So HAX is the world's first and largest hardware accelerator. They are based in Shenzhen, China, and they invested into my company. They have a 4-month program that literally accelerates your company, which is why these things are called accelerators. And the idea being is that they will make you reach your goals faster in return for, that you've got to give them a certain percentage of your company, a small percent. They give you some money, and also lots of business advice. You join a network with lots of other startups, which is really fantastic because you can ask loads of other people lots of questions. Anyway, that's what we went with. And so we moved to China, and this was after raising investment. Shenzhen is the hardware capital of the world. So Shenzhen, China is right next to Hong Kong, and it is known as the hardware capital of the world because so much of the, I think the iPhones made in Shenzhen, I believe, and so many of the electronics that you have probably around your houses now will come from Shenzhen. The picture on the right is a photo of, a small part of the world's largest electronics market. So this is a market that has all kinds of all kinds of electronic components. It's fantastic. It's it's a brilliant place to, if you're an electronics engineer or a mechatronics engineer looking to prototype electronics, you can go to these markets. But the city has many different factories, machining factories, injection molding, all different types, everything you need to build products with. It's got a fantastic infrastructure for product development and product building, and which is why this hardware accelerator is based there. And 3D printing, lots of local skilled engineers from all over China. People come from all over China to Shenzhen because it's such an innovative place, and a lot of young and talented Chinese people go. Lots of foreigners go for periods of months to develop products. I'll just touch on this one concept, which is you've really got to focus on the minimum things you need to develop in your product to achieve whatever milestones you need, either to kind of start a pilot or to raise traction or to be able to do some demo to investors, whatever. So it's kind of all about this lean mentality. Do the minimum needed to achieve your goals. That's a whole topic in itself, but I popped that in there. So this, 3 years in China. So a 4-month trip became a 3-year trip. So it was just because it was a great place for product development. And so now I've got a very extensive, large network with manufacturers out there, built an office. So we've got a team. We've got staff based in China still. And I returned from China last year before the pandemic. Learned to do business in another culture. So I think a real takeaway from this is that, follow your vision. And actually it's such an exciting thing, because I have no idea I was going to end up with 3 years living in China. But that's what happened. The picture on the right is a photo of some of those electronic markets I mentioned earlier. So you can see if you're developing something, it makes such a difference being able to go there, pick up these pieces, feel them in your hands, compared to being back in England, looking at a computer screen of components, not being able to, look at them. And, you just find things you wouldn't have found online and get new ideas from seeing what's around. 5 years later, so Zaya Health, we develop a range of different products, multiple patents surrounding our technology. We've raised multiple rounds of investment from Silicon Valley investors and have global partnerships. So these are some of our products. So Alosia is a home urine test and a nutrition advice app. I can go more into that in the Q&A if anyone's interested. It's a wellness product we're launching in the UK. Well, it's launched in the UK. Lapta is another product. So this is what I spent a lot of the time in China developing. It's a Bluetooth connected electronic analyzer. This is a little cartridge you can put blood into, but we also can test urine, saliva as well on that, and test a variety of different molecules in those body fluids. So this particular device is used in hospitals, and a leading hospital in the States in Baltimore is University Hospital has it and is doing some preclinical trials with patient blood right now. Many skills learned at Zio, and just on the entrepreneurial journey. So if you're interested in learning a variety of skills, it does just that. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I, as kind of chief product officer, I'm focused on business and product strategies, innovation management. I also do raising investment. You kind of do a lot still as a founder of a company. And I am also a business advisor. So, if you're a business owner looking to grow your company, I can help you. I have a large network of investors I'm part of. I have a large network of manufacturers. Can be a massive value for almost any company. So I've also recommended government policy as part of an innovation-focused think tank. So things you can do right now: grow your network, get exposure to people starting businesses, follow societal trends, look for industry influencers and thought leaders, and connect with me and other entrepreneurs. There's my LinkedIn, so you can connect with me. And if you're starting out, these are some of the questions I'm happy to answer, or maybe you've got other questions, or if you've got a business, these are some other questions you might have I can help with. Just let me know. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you, Rory. That was very informative. Really enjoyed that. Okay, so over to the Q&A session. I have a question for you, Rory. In your slides, you mentioned different working cultures in America, Germany, and the UK. Could you elaborate on this and possibly say if there was a preference in these working cultures?
Sure. So, yeah, I've been lucky to experience, just a handful of different working cultures, and it's been a great learning experience to see how different groups do work in different ways. I think, you could actually say I'm more familiar with the Chinese working culture and business culture just because I've been there for, most recently for 3 years until I came back at the end of last year. I think when you look at a company, and particularly how a company is organized, there are, a key thing you can gauge a working culture on is how decisions are made, and the role of managers, and that's in a at a higher level or within a kind of a team level, like a project manager. And one of the interesting things is some cultures prefer a hierarchical structure. So in China, it's quite hierarchical. And then also you can look at, like I said, there's decision making, and then there's hierarchy as well. So some cultures are hierarchical, like China, and also decision making is quite hierarchical in terms of decision making is made normally just by the main, the boss, say. What I found in Germany is the culture can be slightly different in terms of it seems to be less hierarchical, often a flatter organization, and decision making is often done differently as well. So a boss, you could say, acts more as a facilitator rather than the person who makes the final decision. In a place like China, they are the type of person who makes the final decision. From my experience in the UK and the US, it's quite similar. And what I think here is that you tend to have often kind of flatter organizations. But then often decision making is made by the boss, you could say. The final call, the final decision is made by the boss, and I think that is different to somewhere like Germany. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but some of my takeaways.
It does. Thank you. Thank you. We have another question. It's a two-part question. The question says, how do you know that the idea you have is a good one to proceed with? And how can you recover from failed ventured ideas?
Okay, sure. Well, I'll go with the first. So how do you know that an idea is a good one, effectively, and is a good one to proceed with? So effectively, you never know at the beginning. Of course, you need to start by immersing yourself in the domain and performing, doing market research. So you can do two forms of market research. There's primary research, where you're kind of collecting information yourself. There might be doing surveys or interviews with people, and then there's also secondary research. You can look online at various different, like Bloomberg's website, for different kind of market analysis. But ultimately, this will only ever give you an idea of, a rough suggestion of how your business is going to perform and the market itself. And so I think that the only way you know that an idea is a good one is really to try to test it and to try to get some kind of information back from a prototype. And so part of that process is looking at how you can very cheaply test the idea. So one of the things I like to do, if I am trying to test a new behavior or a new concept, you can very simply, of course, it depends upon what the idea is. This is maybe more suited to a software solution, but so say it's a kind of a software idea. You could create a website very cheaply with Wix or with another website like Squarespace. Very simple. You don't need to know how to code. You create a website with your concept. You can have maybe you have information about your new product or your new service on this website. And effectively, what this is you can market this website with say Google AdWords or Facebook advertising. You can target this website at particular demographics of people, and you can advertise this website and use it as a kind of a test platform. And if you get people who visit your website, and you can track the analytics of the number of people who kind of click onto your website, you can start to get an idea of, is this something that people might be interested in? And in some cases you can even set up a product page where you've literally got a product listed and a click here to buy button. And if people click on that button, people are very interested in kind of finding out, they're more serious in terms of buying the product. And maybe you can also include, like if they were to click that button, they go to another page and you just say, product is still in development, but please, join our mailing list and we'll let you know when we're ready to launch it. And what you're doing is you're able to create a small mailing list of people who are interested in the product or service you're developing, and therefore you can then contact them directly, follow up with them, even arrange a call or an interview and start to kind of ask questions about what exactly were they trying to find, what are their what problem are they trying to solve, and identify what are the key pain points that they are suffering from. And and by doing that, you're able to test an idea very cheaply. Setting up a website doesn't cost much. You can do it very quickly, and you can start to get some initial ideas. So I'd say maybe an approach like that, as well as market research, is quite helpful. And there are plenty more methods I could carry on, but I'll leave that one there, and then maybe go on to some of the other ones. How do you recover from failed venture ideas? So really, you just got to treat everything as a learning experience. I think it's very rare to find an idea that you have at the beginning is the one you end up with commercializing. With my company, Zaya Health, interestingly, we started with the concept of a hospital blood testing device. We then pivoted multiple times across the journey to to kind of prioritizing a milk testing product for kind of milk nutrition. We then looked at what else was there? There was kind of a number of other things, illicit drug testing. There was a number of other products that we focused on, and then we've kind of come round again in a loop back onto hospital drug testing. And we are doing the other projects, but kind of prioritizing them and depending upon a kind of a criteria we've built. But effectively, I think when you do have kind of failed ideas, like a lot of mine I mentioned were didn't work out too well. But what I was able to do is I was able to reflect on exactly why they weren't. In my case, it was lacking complementary skills. I wanted to build a high-tech company. And if you're able to test the ideas without spending a lot of money and it's just your time, that's really a great way to test, to do it. And then if it doesn't work out, you can kind of try to assess, exactly why it did fail. So I hope that is, an answer that, for now. If that person wants to contact me for any other questions, in more detail about that, I can answer that. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you, Rory. There is another question here. This question says, what is the best networking tool you could recommend?
So it depends what you're trying to do and who to network. If you're trying to find a person to make an app, which is quite common, or a website, I mentioned in the presentation, Indie Hacker is quite an interesting website I'd recommend to look up. It's effectively a forum of software engineers and people who are kind of playing around with different ideas. And like I mentioned, a friend of mine very recently used this to find a co-founder for his software company. And if you're looking to find if you're looking to build a maybe higher tech company, I'd recommend looking at Entrepreneur First. I mentioned that in the presentation as well. And you're kind of you're partnered with I believe kind of different people. It might be scientists or other engineers or business people. So that's another good thing. And there's a lot of online events. Hackathons are fantastic. By joining a hackathon, you join an engineering competition and can meet other interesting people driven to start up a company. And hackathons, Indie Hacker, are some of those ways. Entrepreneur First, meetups. These can all be done online as well. I point out. So obviously everyone's kind of travel is limited at the moment, so I'd recommend having a look at some of those.
Great.
Okay.
Just any other question? Okay, there's a question here. If given the chance, would you go back to one of your initial ideas, like the pregnancy band, with your new knowledge?
Yeah. So actually, interestingly, I did come across a company in recent years that have who did exactly the same idea. They used EMG sensors to make a wearable device for mothers to detect early signs of preeclampsia, I believe, and that is quite an interesting idea. I think that would be something that I would have to kind of do more market research and try to identify if that. If this other competitor I found a few years back, how far they've got with it, and if there's, like a good market for that. But I'm passionate about high tech projects, and some of the other things I worked on previously, like the hair cutting appointment app, and even some of the website development, are kind of lower tech ideas. And I think for my own entrepreneurial enjoyment, I prefer high tech things. So.
Amazing. I don't think we have any more questions.
Oh, I think in the inbox I see some. Maybe I.
Yes. Okay, I've got this one here from Jack Hayes from Imperial College. It says, my name is Jack and I am starting a PhD in prosthetics at Imperial. What recommendations would you give to someone new to the bioengineering industry?
Hi, Jack. So I think prosthetics is a really interesting space. It's something I've had a personal interest in, and a lot is changing in that industry. So I think, effectively, if you're someone new to the bioengineering industry, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I think trying to identify, who the key players are in the industry. I think it's changed a lot. And I know Otto Bock and RSL Steeper, or I think they're Steeper now, they're called, used to, I think they kind of had quite large market share, but I know that there's been a lot of new prosthetics manufacturers who've come into that industry, specializing in using kind of 3D printed materials, like IMechE, I think is one. And I think, yeah, what I would do is I would just look at the the current trends with that. And I think in prosthetics, human computer interface is a really interesting area. There's a company I heard of recently who are focusing on developing a brain-computer interface, and that's quite an interesting area. So it's kind of a lot to do with material science. So I think someone new in that area who's interested in prosthetics, I'd start to have a look at who the key players are, what the trends are in terms of the technologies. Where the fringes, where's the kind of the boundaries of technology knowledge as it stands today, and see if you can educate yourself in that kind of where the boundaries of the technology is, and maybe you can kind of develop some innovations there yourself. Okay.
Thank you. We have another question here from Christy Shobadu. How do you ensure your ideas are protected?
Yeah, so this is a great idea, great point, great question. So there is a number of ways to protect your ideas, and really developing a intellectual property strategy, it's called, is often quite key, in any company. And so in my company, to take an example, we have a lot of so we've developed patents. We have filed patents, kind of worldwide patents, and that's kind of one way to ensure ideas are protected. But actually, a really key way is to look at how you can, as a business, keep certain ideas, as trade secret. Effectively, just keep it internally and ensure that it's not shared widely. Now, when you're first starting a company, it can be quite tricky because maybe you've got a new idea, you don't really want to share that with too many people, but maybe you need some advice, so you also need to kind of share the idea. And I think with that, I just would recommend try to network with different entrepreneurs and who are maybe could be in related but slightly different industries, who might be able to kind of advise you or give you specific advice on those ideas. But I think once you one thing. Oh, actually, you know what? One thing you can do is if you feel that you have developed something quite unique. I mean, you can actually file provisional patents yourself. So you can actually go to the US Patent Office website. You can file a provisional patent for $60, I believe it is. And what that does, that gives you a 1-year period of protectability for your idea, and it allows you to. It doesn't become publicly published, so no one can see your idea, but it gives you a 1-year period where you could potentially, develop upon that idea and then choose in that 1-year period to properly patent that idea. So that's kind of I'm kind of maybe starting to get too much into the kind of patent strategy here, but that's also quite interesting. If you want to contact me, I can tell you more about that approach if you do have ideas. And you can also potentially sell ideas as well, sell opportunities by filing a provisional patent yourself in the US Patent Office. But anyway, I'll leave it at that, and then we've got other questions as well. So.
Great, Rory. I think we've got time for one more question. This question comes from Alejandro Gutierrez from University of Exeter. He asks, in your opinion, trying to make your business in a sustainable way could make the value of death even longer in time? Or in the long term, is it worth more? Is it worth the effort?
Okay, so in your opinion, trying to make your business in a sustainable way could make the. So I think maybe the question is about sustainability, and make the value of death even longer in time. So I think so either sustainable. I mean, I'm not sure if this question is about kind of financially sustainable or whether it means environmentally sustainable. But assuming it means environmentally sustainable, I think okay. Basically, trying to navigate the value of death, as people call it. Like I mentioned, you kind of, I mean, there's multiple different ways of doing it. Airbnb, for those of you who are kind of aware of this website, which enables you to book, stays for holidays or weekends in different people's apartment, they navigated their value of death in a really unusual way. What they did was they managed to raise a lot of money with a completely different idea. And the idea they did was they generated a breakfast cereal, which had a theme of a political theme. So I think at the time there was the U.S. Political elections, and there was Barack Obama, and so they made Obama O's. It was like Cheerios, but Obama O's, and effectively via a completely different business idea that never had any ambitions to grow that big, they were able to raise a small bit of money, which they could then use in their main business, Airbnb, to get them across the value of death. So as an entrepreneur, sometimes you kind of have to think outside the box, not be too limited to your immediate business idea, but find other ways you can raise money to help sustain that business. So I don't know if that's really, unfortunately, I don't quite understand that question, but I think, looking at raising investment is an ideal, way of doing it. It doesn't have to be via an investor directly into your company. It can be other ways, like I mentioned in the Airbnb example. So, yeah.
Thank you, Rory. I think you answered that great, in my opinion. If Alejandro has any further questions, surely he can contact us. Okay, so
Sure.
So once again, I'd like to thank you, Rory, for giving us a presentation on your experiences as an engineer. And this ends the first webinar in the engineering career series.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and I'm sorry we couldn't answer everyone's questions. If you want to get in touch with me or the team at the IMechE, I'm happy to answer any questions. I think my LinkedIn profile is in the slide deck there. But anyway, maybe get in touch with the IMechE team here, and yeah, happy to answer any other questions. But thanks very much for having me.
Great, thank you, Rory. And everyone, be sure to follow us on our social media platforms. We have LinkedIn, Instagram, at IMechE, Greater London Region Young Members. Thank you.
Great, thank you.